Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. I am Kenneth Kinney, but friends call me Shark, and like you, I am a professional speaker, and I love listening to Speakernomics. Speakernomics is the professional speaker show that will help you thrive and grow a speaking business so you too can change the world. One keynote session workshop, it's speech at a time. And on this episode, we're doing something a little different again, and we're going to see and hear from quite a few experts, a baker's dozen of them, in fact, all in one show. We're taking on a great topic and looking through the lens of quite a few really smart people who view the speaking game differently. And then we'll draw some answers and insights through their stories. Now, to all my speaking friends, what is that X factor that makes a speaker that in-demand speaker? An X factor is a variety of things, and often it's that undefinable and intangible factor that can be the difference between success and failure. For most people, they haven't been a pro athlete, climbed Mount Everest, or swim with sharks for fun. But that really has little to do with whether or not they truly become an in-demand speaker. The math and algorithm for this, as you will see and hear, isn't always easy to define, but we know it when we see it. And that speaker who's caught lightning in a bottle gets booked again and again and again, and maybe even get to ride a big wave. Let's dive in then with the perspectives of speakers, coaches, agents, meeting planners, and bureaus, and those that have seen this over and over again in the industry. Hopefully, some of the insights will help you take a new look on what it takes to become that in-demand speaker. And let me remind you too that if you're not following their voices on the audio version, then make sure to check out NSA's YouTube channel to watch the video version of the show there. The experts that we're showcasing today, all 13 of them, in order of appearance include the engaging and magnetic speaker, Denise Hamilton, Deia Urbanovich, the founder behind Bureau and Event Services company, Speechless, the expert president and co-owner of Executive Speakers Bureau, Richard Schelp, speaker agent phenom Michelle Joyce of the speaker management company, Michelle Joyce Speakers, rockstar bureau expert, Deia Starr Rank of the Speaker Exchange Agency, dynamic workplace performance expert and keynote speaker, Henna Pryor, the wise one, James Bauchum of Red Propeller Speakers Bureau, the awesome certified meeting professional and senior manager of meetings and events for Destination South, Shannon Jones, the founder of the Speaker Lab and author of The Successful Speaker, Grant Baldwin, bureau expert, Tim Mathy from Speakers Bureau, Speak Inc., the brilliant speaking coach and author of Book More Business, Make Money Speaking, Lois Creamer, Emmy Award-winning keynote speaker and certified speaking professional, Clint Pulver. And we're so lucky to close this one out with the 2024-2025 NSA Board Chair, Hall of Fame speaker, and CSP, Meridith Elliott Powell. And before we jump in, make sure to go to Speakernomics.com. That's where you can find the tips, insights, and knowledge to help you become a better speaker, build a better business, and get paid to speak. So let's learn from some special people, and then I'll see you on the other side with some takeaways. Denise, from your point of view, what is it that makes someone an in-demand speaker? Is there an X factor? What is it that makes someone the speaker that gets selected?
I get asked this question a lot, especially by new up-and-coming speakers. And one of the biggest mistakes I think people make is they are desperate to tell their story. They have something that has happened in their career or in their life that they feel is really powerful and they want to share it with the audience. And I have to break the news to them. People do not pay you for your story. They pay you to change theirs. So the best speakers in the world are able to extract powerful lessons from their experiences and from their education, but translate them into actionable, powerful lessons that people can listen to and take away and apply to their lives in the real world. So if you're focusing on sharing your deep truth and sharing your deep story, people will listen to you. But if you want to be an in-demand, sought-after, paid speaker, you've got to make sure you are providing actual change.
Deia, from your point of view, you've booked thousands of speakers. What is it that makes somebody that in-demand speaker? Is there an X factor? I mean, a lot of people are not celebrities, and yet they get selected for the speaking gig.
That's a great question. So what is it? Why do you get selected? What goes through the mind of the bureau or the event planner? Or, I do a lot of internal employee development as well. It's, what is that VP of HR looking for? And so when we say X factor, I wish I could say there was some one thing or silver bullet. And I think I would instead prioritize a couple things that all of the speakers that get it have in common. And the first thing I think is tangibles. Otherwise, you can call it expertise or credibility, but that's not really it. It's actually, you think of a servant leader, their servant leader mindset. This kind of harks back to, I'm a huge proponent of value. And so it's providing value, takeaway, tangibles. And the speakers that do that well tend to know their audience well. They do have a core piece of content that they provide, but it tends to always be tailored based on their audience, or what some people, comedians will say, read the room, right? If you read the room and can take in that data about the room and then provide value to them, a meaningful value that's going to either transform their personal or professional lives, that is the X factor in my mind. Those are the speakers that do really well with my audiences, which tend to be professionals focused on professional and personal development. So I remember I worked with Simon Sinek, oh my gosh, 12, 15 years ago. And I remember we put him up on stage, and after, everybody, I mean, they had pages and pages of notes, but not only that, they could recite parts of the material, meaning that it actually resonated and stuck with them. Counter that or compare that to another speaker, we'll call her Rachel again, who after her presentation, everyone loved her. She was, like you said, amazing, wonderful, fantastic, and then forgotten because there was nothing tangible. There was nothing there that really stuck, either through stories or through the material or content itself. So the X factor for me, this is one piece, is that just tangible, true takeaways. And then the second piece that all the speakers that do really well have charisma, or Shark, you called it likability. Mm-hmm. And that's very difficult to measure or to say how you get that. However, there is this great YouTuber, I think it actually is about charisma. I'll send you the link if you want to put it in the podcast, but he actually does a really great job of breaking down why somebody is more likable or more charismatic based on tonality, their body language, their eyes, how they behave. So these actual tangible things that you can work on as a speaker so that you can be more likable or more charismatic. So if you are charismatic and you're providing real value, I mean, there's no stopping you at that point.
It's called the shark factor.
It's called the shark factor. That's it. Why don't I just answer with that? That would have been way shorter.
All right, Richard, from your point of view and that of a bureau, what is it that you see that makes somebody sort of that in-demand speaker? A lot of people are not celebrities, and everybody's trying to get in that space where they find their own X factor, if you will.
Okay, and it's a great question. I think, first of all, there's really three areas where I feel like where they can really take advantage of that, to where they can have an X factor, where they will be a person selected. The first really is tied to name recognition. Even though you may not be a celebrity person, so to speak, what you do is you need to leverage the recognition factor that goes on within whatever you do. So it could be the book that you wrote, highly popular, some people have read it, you leverage yourself based on the book. It could be that you had a role in a significant organization. Maybe you were the chief marketing officer at Amazon. Maybe you were a person that had a great spot in US government or whatever. But what happens is you can leverage that form of recognition, and that makes you significant when you're trying to get a speaking job. Now, I will tell you that's one way. The second way is really having your content being really significant and applicable currently. So right now, AI is extremely hot. And if you have a unique angle on what you deliver to do with AI, you will be somebody that is currently applicable. People will want to book you just because of the way that you're approaching this hot topic area. So if you're tied into a hot topic, you have a unique angle, that is definitely an X factor. But the third one is going to be one I don't think you're going to hear from anybody else. And that is this. And that is, there's a hook that every speaker must have. And the people who sell that speaker, whether it is a marketing person that works for them, whether it's the speaker themselves, or whether it's a person within a bureau selling them, they have to have a hook that will get people's attention. That hook must be able to be effectively communicated in 15 seconds. If that can be done, that is an X factor that you have that a lot of other speakers will not have.
Michelle, from your point of view, what is it that makes someone an in-demand selected speaker? What's that X factor, if you will? Because not everybody's a celebrity. A lot of successful working speakers are not celebrities, but what makes them an in-demand speaker?
That is such a great question. And I kind of want to unpack it a little bit if I can. I would say that the most in-demand speakers are people that are speaking on relevant information for today's workforce. So if you step back for a minute and you think about how much the world has changed in the past 4 years, if you haven't changed your programs and your content and your stories and your examples and the case studies you're using, you're out of date. And so what I'm seeing is that audiences are looking for subject matter experts on a relevant topic that can help their business today and tomorrow. They are excellent storytellers, right? They create a holistic experience for the audience. So it's one thing to be a great speaker. It's one thing to be a great subject matter expert, a good storyteller, all those things. You laugh, you cry, you learn. They're looking for the whole package. It's a competitive market, right? So people kind of have to bring it all together. But I will also say that the most in-demand speakers, the one thing they have in common, they are delightful to work with. So that's what you hear the most, right? So-and-so was amazing with the AV team, networking with our audience before. They were so easy. They weren't over demanding. So my big piece of advice is just be really easy to work with.
Deia, from your point of view, if you're not a celebrity, what's that X factor that really helps people, speakers get booked and become those in-demand speakers?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you from a non-exclusive bureau perspective, it is hands down marketing. Those marketing assets, from a bureau perspective, oftentimes we're not talking to the actual decision maker. We may be talking to a meeting planner, or we may be talking to one member of a committee or a team of people that are making that decision. So because we're not necessarily talking directly to the decision maker, those marketing assets are huge. And it's really important to, just stay up to speed and to keep them fresh, because what websites look like 10 years ago and what they look like today are very, very different. So just making sure that you're keeping those assets fresh. They're a hard asset, between websites and all the marketing assets that are needed. It's hard to keep that. It's expensive. It takes time. All of those things. It's hard to keep it all up to date, but I would tell you it needs dusted off probably every couple of years and just amped up a little bit. And so keeping that in mind. One other piece to really make a differentiation, in my opinion right now, and this is what we hear from clients. And again, this doesn't matter what the line of business is, whether it's Fortune 500 companies, whether it's associations or healthcare, finance, manufacturing, like it just doesn't matter who or what. We are constantly hearing clients asking for tangible takeaways, things that they can, and again, it doesn't even matter what topic, whether it's motivation, whether it's leadership, service, culture, resilience. Like, it doesn't matter the topic, it doesn't matter the client. Clients are begging for, what can we give these attendees, whether they're employees or clients or whatever kind of meeting it is, what can we give them that they can, even in a keynote fashion, right? I'm not talking about a training day. I'm talking about a 1-hour keynote. What can that speaker give us that we can actually, one tangible thing that we can take back and do different in our life or work or whatnot. So that is a thing right now that I feel like is setting people apart. It used to be, a keynote was you're being spoken to, and clients now, they still want that 60-minute standard keynote, but they want some nugget out of it. They don't want just stories. They don't want just motivation. They want all of that. Plus, give me something I can do to make my life or world better.
Henna, in your opinion, what is it that makes someone an in-demand speaker? What is that X factor, if you will, that really lights them up to bureaus, meeting planners, and all the people that hire us to speak?
Yeah. So in addition to being rigorous about the craft of speaking, in addition to researching your client, I think what makes someone in this moment very in demand is all of us as speakers are, to some degree, leadership speakers, resilient speakers, change management speakers, personal and professional development speakers. We technically can all fit into that category. But what makes somebody in demand is that instead of going through the front door of those topics, a willingness to search long and hard for the side door. And so here's what I mean by that. One of my main topics is around awkwardness in the workplace. It's about confidence. It's about courage. It's about communication, collaboration, risk-taking, navigating uncertainty. I could say I'm a speaker on all of those things, but instead, the side door entry point is, what is something that is curiosity-inducing, different, but still wildly resonant to everyone in the audience. Awkwardness is something that everybody experiences, but it's less talked about. It creates curiosity, really, at work, right? And it is still relevant to the moment that we live in with all of the uncertainty, challenge, and change. So I think early on in developing a new keynote, if you're a seasoned speaker or being a new speaker, what are you doing to go through the side door when all of your competitors are going through the front door? If you can identify one or two side doors, your demand will skyrocket.
Knock, knock, who's there?
Banana.
James, what is it that makes someone that in-demand candidate?
Someone that is constantly busy, someone that, I guess, you try to book them and they've already booked 6 months, sometimes to a year out, which leads me to believe that they are in demand. They're very popular. Organizations of some meeting planners will see them at another meeting, and they will come to me and say, well, we want that speaker to address our group. Can you get him or her for me? And I'll do my best to find them. If they're not on eSpeakers, I'll have to go to their website. I'll have to Google them. I'll do anything and everything humanly possible to get the speaker to that client organization.
Shannon, from your point of view, what is it that makes someone that in-demand selected speaker? You've got a lot of choices that you look at. Not everybody's a celebrity, but what is it that's sometimes that X factor that helps you pick this person as a speaker?
Yeah, I think I think first and foremost, it's a topic that is relevant and important to people to sit and listen to. Topics kind of have their heyday and they come and go. And so really being front and center on what are the topics that people are interested in listening to and sitting there for 45 minutes or an hour to take in, I think is really important. And then, of course, the dynamics of the speaker. Does the speaker mesh with the dynamics of your group, the demographic of your group, and that goes far deeper than male, female, in their 20s, in their 50s, so really kind of being able to align your speaker and your topics, I think, are some of the first things that I look for as a planner.
Grant, what do you think is the most important thing that can help speakers get selected to be that speaker of choice on a stage?
All right. One of the things we talked about a while back on the episode that we did together was the idea of being a steakhouse and not the buffet, the steakhouse, not the buffet. Like whenever an event planner, decision maker is looking at speakers, like part of what they're looking at is their confidence in, can this speaker deliver for my audience? And the more clear you are on your message and the problem that you solve for that audience, the more confidence it gives that event planner that in your ability to do that. And so it's kind of like if you have some type of, let's say you needed some type of project done at home. Let's say you needed to have your bathroom remodeled, for example. Okay. You could go out and say, all right, here's this general contractor who has done some similar things and they could probably figure it out and they'd probably do an okay job and kind of fumble their way through it. Or like, here's this person that like, actually, all I do is bathroom remodels. I don't even do kitchen remodels. I can't mow your yard. I can't paint your house. But if you need a bathroom remodeled, like I'm the person. And so oftentimes the speakers were worried like, oh, but if I just do bathroom remodels, there's so many other things that I could do that limits me. But for the people looking for a bathroom remodel, all of a sudden you become the only option and the only game in town. And so it's counterintuitive, but it actually makes the buying decision for an event planner or decision maker easier because they're like, hey, look at all these speakers that could do what it is that we're looking for versus here's the one speaker who does only this and is the best in the planet at this. So if anything, I would say, again, focus on solving that one specific problem for that one specific audience. And all of a sudden you make the buying decision for that event planner or decision maker so much simpler.
Tim, from your point of view, what is it that makes someone an in-demand speaker, especially when you consider that most of the speakers out there are not obviously celebrities, but it does take a lot for somebody to build that momentum, get hot, and get selected as a pretty popular and frequent book speaker?
Sure. I think the one word comes to mind to me is momentum. And again, I wish I had 3 points. I've been trying to think, I thought about this for years. I wish I had 3 points on here's 1, 2, 3, and I'm becoming a great speaker. I don't have an answer. I think momentum is the key. And it fascinates me sometimes how just out of the blue, a speaker will just start being talked about from the speaker community, the bureau community, the meeting planning community. It's just this momentum. And it's like, you know, I think you're a water guy, you know, it's like riding a wave. Somehow someone just gets on that wave and it just takes off. And man, I wish I had a great answer for it, but there's something that just clicks and happens. And I don't know if it's a certain event, a certain thing they said or did. It just happens and the momentum takes off and boom. And I think the hard part with that is, I think, you know, people always say it's hard getting in the speaking game. And I agree. I think it's harder staying on top of the speaking game. And I think that's difficult to do, is keeping that momentum going. But again, I've thought about this so much and I wish I had 3 data points, but I don't. It's, to me, I just think there's some momentum going that your name is being just talked about behind the scenes without you even knowing. And then all of a sudden you're being pushed out there a lot and, you know, hopefully getting some of these engagements.
Lois, from your point of view, what is it that makes someone an in-demand selected speaker, that X factor, if you will? It's basically, you know, looking at what is the most important thing that helps a speaker get selected.
I think the most important thing is the speech. Do you have a great speech that you can deliver in a professional way that creates memories for the people who were there? High content and high value. You have to be a great storyteller. I think that is the number one thing if you want to be a successful and in-demand professional speaker, Shart. To me, it all begins with the speech. Because if that sucks, nothing else matters. You're not going to get repeat business. You're not going to get referrals. You're not going to get the low-hanging fruit, if you will. And so I think it all begins with the speech. And I always tell people, as you're starting out or as you're refining, reach out for help. If you need help, there are people who can help write speeches, help you craft stories that are absolutely great at it. And some of the best speakers, some of the most popular speakers and most successful speakers that you and I know in NSA have used these coaches. So don't think that you have to do it alone. But I think that the speech is the most important thing. If you don't have a good speech, you'll never get a platform.
Clint, from your point of view, what is it that makes someone an in-demand selected speaker? What's that sort of X factor, if you will? Basically, it's the thing that helps speakers get picked and booked.
I think in my point of view and in my personal opinion, it is, do you provide an experience, not just a keynote? How do you engage the audience in something that is not just a talking head on stage clicking through a PowerPoint presentation, but it's something that immerses the audience in a journey, in a ride, in an experience that they never forget?
Meridith, from your point of view, what is it? What's that X factor that helps speakers get selected, especially when you consider that most speakers are not celebrities?
Yeah. So how do you get selected when you are not celebrity, when you are not some big name? I really think it comes down to three things. Number one, you're never going to get selected if you aren't good on stage. You don't have to be great on stage, but you've got to be good on stage. And they've got to see video of you good on stage. You've got to have a good reputation. The second, I think, is most important is that I think this is the biggest reason that I work. I mean, I've never climbed up Mount Everest backwards. I've never, made a touchdown. I've never done any of those.
I'm going to take you swimming with sharks at some point.
That's right. But I think that a speaker gets selected because they're relevant, because somebody looks at your website, sees your video, says, here's what you are talking about, and says, I need that in my company. So you know what the problem is that your target market has, and you have found the solution to that problem. And then the third piece is because you market and sell. Because even if you have the right answer, if you're no celebrity, nobody's heard of you. So you better make your own noise.
Let's do a quick recap then, based on their expert advice, and find that expert in you. Denise points out that people do not pay you for your story. They pay you to change theirs. Your story may be great to you, but remember, it's about them and the change they will make. Deia reminds us of those tangibles that we speakers need to provide. Most speakers believe they provide value, but value comes in so many forms and often means something different to you than the meeting planner and their audience. Those tangibles help true takeaways to be remembered. And she also added that hard to measure X factor of charisma. That's another X factor to her, or as we call it, the shark factor. Richard had several great points, but especially the point that speakers must have a great hook. That hook has to get people's attention. He says in 15 seconds. And you may know your elevator pitch, but if others don't know it or remember it or can't recite it, then you likely have some work on clarifying and simplifying your message quickly and with a better hook. There are so many brands, if you will, of speakers out there. Make it easier for people to remember yours. What is most appreciated from Michelle, and she knows the subject well, is that X Factor speakers are SMEs and who are actually delightful to work with, whether it's with the meeting planners or the audience or to the AV team and so much more. So don't be a diva. Being an incredibly nice expert is a superpower of sorts, or at least an X Factor. In the immortal words of will.i.am and Snoop Dogg, be nice. Deia reminds us of how important your marketing has to be dialed in with those assets that help you resonate with today's audiences. Keep it fresh. You may love all of your assets, your website, your demo reel, and one-sheeter, but a lot of times they still need to be dusted off. Most importantly, though, and they hear this a lot from businesses who hire speakers, clients are begging for tangible takeaways, regardless of the topic or the client. She says they're begging for them, and that's an X factor, too, if you do it extremely well. Henna reminds us that we all fit into a lot of the categories as speakers, but what makes someone an in-demand speaker is someone who searches long and hard for what she calls the side door instead of the front door. That X factor is curiosity-inducing, different, but still wildly relevant to everyone in the audience. James reminds us about the principle of scarcity. We know this with bureaus in that they often book and want to book the in-demand speakers, but it's a reminder for everyone, keep busy. Shannon reminds us that it has to be relevant and think about whether or not they mesh with a group. It's a great point on audience alignment. Grant emphasizes the needed to answer question of, can this speaker deliver for my audience? That's a great X Factor question. The more clearly you can articulate your message and the problem you solve, the more confidence in your ability to do that. Here's the one speaker who solves a specific problem for that specific audience, and you make the buying decision for that meeting planner so much simpler. Tim reminds us so well that there's no magic formula for this, and he surely would know. Though when it happens, be ready to ride the wave, and it's hard to stay on top. So continue to build on momentum. To Lois, that X factor is the speech. Do you have a great speech that you can deliver in a professional way that creates memories for the people who are there? It all begins with a speech. And if you look at some of the brilliant speakers within NSA who are in demand, and very, very often, that X factor is that they have a great speech. Can I get an amen? Clint's X factor comes from not just the talk, but from creating a great experience where you immerse the audience in an experience that they will never forget. And bringing it home, Meridith reminds us that you have to be good on stage. You don't necessarily have to climb a mountain or even dive with sharks, but you have to be relevant and make sure that you go out there and you market and you sell. So go create some noise. But one more consideration, remember, this isn't rocket surgery. A lot of this is the blocking and tackling of being a professional speaker and not just someone who speaks. Having a great speech, being super relevant, being incredibly nice and easy to work with, creating a great experience with great tangible assets that you leave with people. None of that was about having a bestseller, being an Olympic athlete, or being shiny and new. So by the time this episode airs, I will have come back from another great NSA event. I'll be reminded that speakers with that X factor that puts them in demand is that they have put it all together and applied all of the smart advice from these smart people. So now it's time to go find the X factor in you. Friends, make sure to join us at Speakernomics.com and let your voice be heard. I'm Kenneth Kinney, your host of the National Speakers Association's podcast, Speakernomics. And this has been another fantastic episode of the show. Thank you for the privilege of your time. And remember, Speakernomics is a podcast where you'll learn to speak, get paid, repeat.